Hi guys, it's Shrey and welcome back to my channel, and today we are continuing the read along for silent reading, otherwise known as Mordu. I am so nervous and so excited because we are getting into the second volume, as well as it being the arc where girls go missing and things like that, so that is gonna be stressing me out a little bit, unfortunately. But you know, it is what it is. Hi guys, sorry. I do also just quickly want to mention. Oh wow, already 3 people here. Hi. So I do want to mention, in case you see like injuries all over me, uh, it is not like anything absolutely terrifying happened. I just have a new puppy, and she's very playful, and it's very painful, but we love her. So yeah, just in case you're wondering, I don't think it will show up on camera, but I just kind of wanted to mention it in case. Um, and I have my coffee here, I have my water here. We're going to be taking our 10-minute break on the hour, or like as close to the hour as we can, depending on where the chapters end, because usually if we are at like a chapter ending, I'd rather wait and do it then. But we shall see. So let me quickly just make sure. I think, okay, so as far as I'm aware, we left off at the start of chapter 36 with Feidu feeling like there were eyes on them, which is a wonderful feeling that is not at all creepy. Um, yeah, no, baby can't control her strength yet at all. She's very excitable, and obviously she doesn't realize how sharp her teeth and claws are yet, so when she plays, it does get a bit painful. Um, but yeah. Okay, so let me not talk too much about her. I have a pillow just in case we need it. And I also have Levi's here with me because I feel like it was a struggle yesterday at some point, so hopefully that'll help a little bit. We shall see. I just want to give like 2 more minutes in case other people want to show up, but then I think we can just get started. Is there anything else that I wanted to say? Oh, just a quick note, because it does seem like YouTube is suppressing the video. There was a video that went up yesterday for cozy commentary, so anyone who's interested in my thoughts on To My Star Season 2, the entire series' reactions are up under that one video. Me cuddling the body pillow, so ready for the Lolita arc? Not. Yeah, no, gotta say, not particularly comfortable with that. I was barely comfortable with it in the show, and weirdly enough, I feel like reading it will be worse. Usually, when I read like horror and things like that, it's a little bit better for me because there's not visuals to go with what's being said. But in this case, somehow, I feel like this is gonna be worse. But okay, I think we can basically get started with the chapter. And let's hope we can maybe get 4 chapters done, but these chapters have been getting a little bit longer. Oh, let me also just quickly pop out the chat before I forget. I have been watching Stray Kids, like people reacting to Stray Kids' new songs, and now it's just stuck in my head. And 80s. Um, totally fine and nice, not. Yeah. Okay, are we ready? Chapter 36, Humbert, 3. I love you, I was a monster, but I loved you, Lolita. The stone benches were arranged around a long, dried-out lotus pond. Among the mud and withered foliage stood a bronze statue. The bronze statue was an abstract style. The naked eye basically couldn't distinguish what on earth it could be sculpted to represent, but it had one very brightly polished surface on which distorted reflections could be seen. Just now, Fedu had carelessly looked up and met the reflection of a pair of eyes on the sculpture. Oh, that's not creepy at all. Ugh. The bronze sculpture wasn't a mirror after all. The light and the shade were blurred. The person's age and sex weren't even clear. But for some reason, as soon as he saw those eyes, Fedu's heart tightened, and the vanilla cream puff he just swallowed seemed to stick in his chest. He subconsciously lifted his head and, going off the image on the sculpture, searched all around. The elderly estate didn't have walls around it. It was a few buildings crowded together into a group, the boundary between them and the rush of traffic vague. There was a nearby bus stop which, because earlier plans had been mishandled, had made inroads into the estate. A number of people were lined up outside the shrubberies, group after group coming and going. The shops all along the street did a fairly brisk business. It was closing on midday. Now, and there were already people standing and waiting in front of some small food stands. We're starting with such a bright quote. Yeah, no, it's absolutely not creepy at all. Um, The crowds bustled around. There were residents of the small estate who'd come out in their pajamas. There were passerbys who had things to do in the surrounding neighborhood. There were owners of private cars who had taken the estate's roads as a shortcut. There were people eating and people standing and waiting, as well as people delivering packages and food coming and going. The owner of the pair of eyes was on high alert. They had already concealed themselves among the sea of people. They didn't find any sign of anything suspicious. Of course not, because that would be too easy. He immediately stood up and said to Chen Chen, "Come on, we're going home." Chen Chen had absolutely no sense of crisis. She gave a long, drawn-out, disappointed "oh," and looked longingly towards the food shops lined up along the street. She licked the leftover cream from her fingers. Her eyes turned, and she issued a request on the strong grounds towards Feidu. "I still have some spending money. You just treated me to a cream puff, so why don't I treat you? I want a matcha-flavored one too. Another day." Feidu gently but uncompromisingly pushed at the back of her head. "We're going to eat lunch." Chen Chen was forced to stand up and follow him. "But I don't like eating lunch. There's a lot of dishes I don't like to eat." Bless Feidu for following his gut and sticking to it. Eesh. "Oh, actually, I'm the same." Feidu very frankly acknowledged his prince's disease in front of the little girl. Then he continued in a different line. "Although it'd be better when you're older. When you're older, you can buy whatever you want to eat, and no one will know you're a picky eater." But yes, very, very true. Chen Chen stared at him speechlessly, feeling that these adults were very shameless. Just then, she suddenly got a clear look at Feidu's expression and froze on the spot. Adolescent children are half grown. They already have some sense of precaution and can basically read adults' facial expressions. Chen had thought that Feidu had just been joking with her. As soon as she looked up, she found that he was frowning slightly, his face excessively serious. In spite of herself, she became nervous at this and reached out a hand to tug at Feidu's clothing. "Da Ge, what's wrong?" As they spoke, the two of them were passing a residential building. A window on the first floor corridor was just swinging open, its arc unfolding. Feidu had calmly let the little girl walk in front of him, talking to her with his head lowered. At this point, without warning, he suddenly looked up. In the bright and clear window, he caught a gaze following them like a shadow. The person was wearing sunglasses and a face mask, firmly covering up their whole face. Vero put a hand on Chinchin's shoulder and quickly turned his head. At the same time, about 200 meters behind them, a person dove into a nearby shrubbery, immediately vanishing without a trace. Fedu had only a glimpse of the person's humped back and white hair. An old man? Shinshin didn't know what had happened. She watched him on tethered hooks. Fedu's chilly gaze went through the lenses perched on his nose, sweeping over the crowd not far from them. He asked, "Does someone usually take you home from school?" Oh. Um, as expected of a 10-year-old, yep, this one's also 10, so true, but as a picky eater, also I get them. As a fellow picky eater, I get that too. Um, but I think, like, as a picky eater, I tend to be very lenient on other people who are picky eaters, even though most people who are picky grow out of it. I just never did, unfortunately. Um, yes, said Chinton quietly. When my mom and dad are home, they come to pick me up. If they aren't there, JJ takes me on the subway. If she's working overtime, then I wait at school for a while. There's a teacher there especially to look after us. I like, my gut instinct was, oh, that's good, but I know that's not gonna help. Ugh. Fedu nodded thoughtfully and asked, "Have you seen any strange grandpas around?" Chinchin thought about it for a moment and shook her head at him, full of misgivings. The two of them quickly entered the residential building's corridor. The old light grey building cut off the gaze from the shadows. Some time after, an old man with a scooped back slowly came out from behind the bus stop sign. His face was covered. He wore a giant pair of sunglasses, and he had a cane in his hand, like a person with impaired vision knocking against the ground to feel his way. Surrounding people had earbuds stuck in their ears, most of them indifferently fiddling with their phones. They didn't notice his hobbling steps. The dark lenses were the ideal shield for him. Sunlight couldn't pass through, but his greedy gaze could. Ugh. Um, His gaze made an arduous journey, piercing through time and space, without moving a muscle. He stared fixedly at the place where the little girl had just been. Her floral patterned dress seemed to be pulsating with light, a quartz hairpin setting off her clear, bright little face. I hate that. I hate reading that. Ugh. Like, why does it sound so disgusting the way it's being framed? I mean, I get why, but I don't know how Priest manages to do that. In all his field of vision, in all the world, it seemed to be the only light. Its childish and awkward outlines entered his eyes, and in an instant burst into flame, leaving a well-arranged and coherent contour on his retinas. Can I unread that? But there was a snake monster guarding the forbidden fruit. Not Feydew being described as a snake monster. Thinking of the gaze of the man beside the little girl, he fearfully retreated towards the shadows again. His terror and longing assembled into a unique trepidation. He thirstily. Oh! This is so unpleasant to read. He thirstily licked his lips and leaned heavily against a tree trunk, his chest rising and falling violently. He was captivated by this trepidation. Uh, like a person drowning or poisoned. I wish someone would poison you. I'm sorry, that's a terrible thing to say, but. Ugh. In the time it took to eat a cream puff, The elevator had been fixed. Feidu pressed the button for the 12th floor and went into the elevator with Chin Chin. Okay, just give me a second. Yeah, I'm also really chill about other picky eaters, and also didn't go out of it, mostly because it's all about textures of food for me personally. Same. And yeah, it's nice to be reminded that Feidu really is very young still, because he can be so Feidu that you sort of forget. Yeah, I think as well, for him, he's not, like, he's young, don't get me wrong. But I think some of his habits make him feel even a bit younger than he actually is, because he's kind of allowed to be like that. Like, if you grow up in certain families, I think the kinds of things that he gets away with would be a lot less tolerated. But because he's like on his own, he doesn't have to like change or grow out of it or anything like that. Okay. Are we ready to get back to this? No. Chin Chin carefully asked, Dagogo, what happened just now? Feidu paused. He didn't comfort the girl. I saw a very suspicious person. In the future, remember to look after yourself when you're alone with a grown-up. I know. I'll be in the graduating class when the school starts. I'm not a little first grader. Oh. Mimicking the tone of an adult, Chin Chin counted off on her fingers. Keep a distance from strangers. Don't eat anything strangers give to you. If strangers ask you for something, politely tell them to go to the police. Okay. You have to be even more careful around people who aren't strangers. Feidu tapped on his forehead. Don't get into a grown-up's car on your own, and don't be alone with a grown-up where there aren't any other people. For example, right now, it's very unsafe for you to be with me. What if I was a bad guy? I mean, sadly, I kind of agree with him, but also I feel like this speaks to how his like world and perspective shift probably happened at a very young age, where he realized he couldn't trust his father. Now, I don't have a lot of grounds to go on with that, just Feidu's unwavering belief that his father probably had something to do with his mother's death, which, even if that's not the case, you have to wonder why he would think that of someone that's supposed to protect him. Um, so I feel like there is a little bit of not projecting happening here, but definitely like speaking from experience of like, I trusted someone because I knew them and look where it got me, type of thing. Um, this is very unfortunately very real. The number of child abuse incidents at the hands of family and friends is shockingly way more than at the hands of strangers. The social circle is mostly very immature. He's actually the most grown up for them, and that's mostly trauma, probably. Can agree. Chen Chen covered her forehead, looking at the man who had called himself a bad guy with wide eyes. Huh? Including the teachers at your school, and also including old grandpas and grandmas who seem like they can't move very well. Have you got that? Chin Chin gave an involuntary shudder. Just then, the elevator reached the 12th floor, and the um, grill opened. Oh, I'm assuming it's the like those metal extra locks that they put. She said quietly, "Why, Gurga, I'm a little scared." Being scared is a good thing. Fine things are like porcelain. Feidu blocked the elevator door with his hand, indicating that the girl should get out first. For them, the most dangerous thing often isn't the cat running around inside the room. Then what is it? Feidu looked attentively into the girl's eyes and quietly said, is that the porcelain itself doesn't realize it's breakable. Oh, I don't know how accurate that analogy was. I don't know if I agree with that, but damn, if that doesn't still land like a freaking punch. Lowendraw was in front of the power box, a cigarette in his mouth, leaning against the wall and waiting for them. Does it take you half a year to buy fuse wire? Lowendraw got out a flashlight and a screwdriver and put them aside. If you'd taken any longer, the fish in the refrigerator would have made a break for it. Oh no. As if she was looking for a sense of security, Chin Chin moved her little legs and quickly ran into the apartment. Peidu accepted a screwdriver from Lo Wenjou's hand and very familiarly opened the power box. He took out the burnt-out fuse, then went around the two ends of the circuit with a fuse wire several times and pinched gently. He didn't need pliers, using only the head of the screwdriver. He blocked off a small section of the fuse, pulled a couple of times to ensure it was securely installed, then replaced the circuit breaker. There was a beep in the room behind him. The refrigerator and the air conditioning came back to life at the same time. The whole process hadn't taken more than a minute. Next to him, Lo and Joe hadn't had time to light the cigarette in his mouth. Looking at him, Lo and Joe suddenly realized that Feidu had entirely left the teenage category. He was a man. Important realization from Lo and Joe here. Another step in the right direction, in my opinion. Mm. Looking at Feidu, his view was usually split. When they were at bitter odds with each other, Lo and Joe felt that Feidu was a dangerous calamity with a wretched disposition and no regard for law or discipline, who could explode at any time, and as soon as he opened his mouth he was asking for a beating, particularly unreasonable. But when for once he was calm and good-tempered, he would remember the frail teenager curled up at the gate of the villa. He would sometimes worry about him, sometimes excessively take care of him in spite of himself. It was an older brother's care, without distracting thoughts. Mm-hmm. But perhaps because of Feidu's over-the-line provocation, in the stairwell earlier, Lowenjaw's split points of view suddenly showed a tendency to come together. Oh! Error and falsehood cancelling each other out, finally producing a sliver of an objective clarity. Feidu wasn't a dangerous antisocial element, neither was he a pitiful little boy. First of all, he was a man, and a very attractive young man at that. Ooh. I mean, I don't disagree. I lost my place because I'm kind of shocked. Knowledgeable and tactful, with a brazen false propriety written all over him, like someone blocking half their face with pippa, were the words, "You're welcome to come to bed any time." I'm sorry? Lowenjo, what are you reading on his face? Tell me again. Oh my word. Okay, let's see what's going on here. And this is also why reporting a child abuse case is such a rarity. It always gets suppressed since victims are not taken seriously or are told. It's more shameful and scandalous to report family. Yeah. We are realizing things. He's no longer in the brat territory. It only took a million, well, okay, 7 years. I mean, it beats the 10,000 year quota that some people have reached. I'm just saying. I mean, good, so brats are not my type, don't apply to him anymore. Oh, goodness, okay. Lowenjo thought that if he weren't Lowenjo thought that if he weren't Feidu, If he were only a stranger he'd brushed shoulders with on the street or in a bar, he would be the type to cause more than a few passing thoughts. Mm-hmm. See, okay, this is the kind of thing that I live for. I know that plot is important and we appreciate all the good work that Priest is doing with the plot, but can I just have them kind of like low-key thirsting over each other? Because it's so enjoyable but also so weirdly funny. Um but why did there have to be the precondition of if he weren't Feydu? Lo and Joel fell into deep contemplation of the human condition, even being somewhat absent during the meal. Taran's dining table wasn't big enough. Many of the dishes couldn't be put down. They had to be passed around and divided up. Lo and Joe accidentally ladled out a big piece of plain sugar ham hock into the small plate for Feidu's hand. Accidentally. Yeah, sure. Having put it in, he only then remembered that this belonged to From the Knee Down. The young master didn't eat it. Oh no. Lowen Joe's movements paused. He had yet to speak when Feidu, poking gently with the tips of his chopsticks, exchanged a look with the pig's leg. Then, with a distasteful look on his face, he picked it up and put it into his own bowl, his expression resembling the patriotic cat Loiqua smelling imported cat food. I'm not okay. This is my kind of fluff. Sorry. Low and Joe, dot dot dot. Of course, all this garbage about From the Knee Down and sore throat was just something this bastard had made up. I don't know. I think maybe it's more like you're the exception. Ever consider that? Outside of the crowd from the city bureau, Feidu and Changming both belonged to the outgoing and well-spoken category. They quickly entered into the atmosphere, not seeming at all like outsiders. Nang Chao, putting on airs, had brought along 2 bottles of red wine. Aside from the miner, she poured everyone a glass, and they enthusiastically congratulated Deputy Tao on entering the ranks of mortgage slaves. Oh, that expression. Nang Chao cleverly noticed the large one-way arrow pointing from Taran to Changning. Right in front of Changning, Nang Chao recited an what? Extemporaneously composed in praise of Deputy Tao, okay, from Taran's dedication to his profession, his love of life and love of small animals. She went on to enumerate, all the unsurpassing struggles Deputy Captain Tao had undertaken against the ghost brother, what? Ghost botherer, oh, what is that? Captain Moore, for the sake of protecting the numerous lackeys. Finally, under Lowendra's falsely smiling, fixed attention, she veered the subject away, out of nowhere fabricating a beautiful woman in pursuit of Tauran, scaring Tauran into a hastily giving a small bowl, and entreating the patroness not to impugn on the person's purity without provocation. Oh my word, that was just too many, like, $20 words. Thank you very much. My English cannot. I love the domesticity of Priest's fluff. So homely, it really is about the domesticity. Mm-hmm. Indeed. Talca is truly very patient. They do put in a timely word to alleviate the awkwardness. In the future, when he has children himself, he'll definitely be a model dad. I caused a lot of trouble for him when I was little. Oh, guys, I'm not ready for, like, because I don't think we've had the um, Game Boy or like gaming console reveal yet, and I think it might be happening now. If you guys can hear that barking, it is the dog. So she's recently started barking. I don't think she knew how to bark until one of the neighbors' dogs taught it to her. So sorry about that. Um, Face and ears red, Taran repeatedly waved his hand. Chengning looked at him curiously. Feidu sipped a mouthful of red wine. My mom died young, and Talgra was the policeman who handled her case. My father had no attention to spare to look after me, and he voluntarily took care of me for a long time. Actually, I was in my teens then. Even if there had been no one looking after me, I wouldn't have starved to death on my own. But only with him did I find out what living life seriously was. Jie, don't look at the miserable way he scrapes by on his own. When he's taking care of others, there's nothing he won't think of. Oh, that's really cute. Having listened to this crowd marketing Taran one after another, Changning didn't feel anything but how well Deputy Tao got on with others. She couldn't resist turning her head and smiling at him. Taran's alcohol tolerance wasn't much better than getting knocked down by one glass to start with. Having drunk most of the glass of red wine, he was already dizzy. The ambivalent smile of his partner trained on him. He forfeited his cognitive functions entirely. I love that description. Oh my word. Um, Hard pressed, he began to rave. No, no, it's really not like that. I wasn't the only one taking care of little Feidu. Everyone was very concerned about you. Even my shifu heard about it afterwards and often asked about you. And who else? Wenju. If you don't see it, he wouldn't say. But actually, he sneakily went to look at you several times. And that game machine of yours, he gave it to me too. Happiness. Happiness. Ah, okay. Sorry, let's see what's going on here. CP has a fight. The one in charge of the kitchen bangs around cookware while cursing, then ladles a large portion of food and serves it to the other half with a bang. No, that's so cute. Learning to bark. Yes. Sending kisses and good girls to the baby Juliets. I shall do so. Um, Literally all the love to the. I appreciate you guys receiving her with so much love. Thank you. Nataran throwing Wenjo under the bus. Golden moments. Straight guy stupidity. Best wingman. All of the above. We love a Taran accidentally just outing Lo Wenjo like that. Because let's face it, it would never have happened otherwise. And we need, like, he needed to know. Lowenjo, hearing something wrong with his words, hurriedly kicked him under the table, but it was already too late. Taran's small remaining sense of balance went up in smoke at his kick, and he toppled sideways, knocking over a nearby cardboard box of odds and ends that he hadn't had time to put away yet. All kinds of professional books, leisure books, folders, and notebooks went clattering on the ground. Feidu and Lo and Jo, each holding down one corner of the table, were motionless. Lang Chao heartlessly jabbed Lo and Jo with her elbow. Is that true? Boss, did you really do that? That's pretty embarrassing, and that's pretty damn adorable. What are you on about? Lo and Jo, damn it. You know it's embarrassing and you're still broadcasting it in public? Under Fedu's heavy gaze, he braced himself and gave a dry cough. Then, in an obvious attempt at a cover-up, he stood and went to gather up the cardboard box Taran had knocked over. Good for nothing. I drop too much wine and you start blabbing. Lowendraw wrenched the subject away, picking up a yellowed notebook and flipping through it, stirring up dust. Hey, why do you have Shifu's old notebook here? Before he had finished speaking, a portrait sketched in pencil fell out of the notebook. The drawing was of a refined man with regular features, but in his eyes, which looked straight out of the picture, there were faint signs of something heavy being repressed. There was a date noted on the paper, over 20 years ago. There was also an annotation written in a corner, Wu Guangchun, 6 girl bodies not yet found. Oh, I don't really know if I'm ready for this. I have to say, I want to appreciate the way that Priest is bringing up this case because it feels very organic. I mean, obviously, we're aware that this is going to be the next case. It's kind of been being made very obvious um, with the foreshadowing, but I just appreciate how the foreshadowing was done and the fact that we saw um, Fedu and Lowen were talking about it at the graveyard in a way that felt very organic, like they got onto the topic very organically. And again, here it also feels very organic. So it just was very nicely done, in my opinion. Okay, chapter 37, Humbert 4. Nang Chao hadn't had her fun yet. She was planning to follow on the heels of her victory, ganging up with her colleagues to continue encircling Law and Jaw. But unexpectedly she looked up and met the eyes of the portrait that had fallen on the ground, and was so startled that alcohol flew out of her pores. Oh, that's an interesting description. The public security system had people who specialized in making composition drawings, composite drawings. There was no lack of experts among them. Comparatively speaking, this portrait's execution belonged to a beginner level, but the odd thing was that the person in the drawing had an uh, uncommonly lifelike charm. This face seemed to have been traced over countless times in the artist's mind, until the artist could resist no longer and had just applied their awkward technique to the paper. "What is that?" said Lang Chao. Having been kicked over by Lowendraw, Toran had sobered up a little and noticed he had said something wrong. He stood up, leaning on the couch, and went out of the room to wash his face. When he returned, he and Lowendraw cleaned up the stuff. "It must be Lotus Mountain." The old man went on about it all his life. Lotus Mountain wasn't a mountain. It was the name of a place on the northern outskirts of Yan City. Earlier, it had fallen under the county seat administered by Yan City. Over a decade ago, it had been absorbed into Yan City and become a developmental zone. On the page in the notebook, aside from the vivid portrait, there were several yellowed old photographs stuck to the page with clear tape. It had been too long. They fell at a touch. There was a blurry, casual snapshot, and there were photographic studio products typical of the era. All Dutch windmill backdrops and exaggerated lighting, the smiles of the young girls in them a little stiff, as in a staged photograph with too long an exposure period. Ah, that's an interesting description. There were 6 photographs altogether. There's a very strange thing about old photographs. All photo paper will fade and yellow just the same when put away for a couple of decades. If the person in the photograph is happy and well, the yellowing mark of age will call to mind a long recollection. the quiet passage of time, but if the person in the photograph later met with some mishap, then when others look back on their earlier appearances, they'll get a strange, somber flavor from it, as if the person in the photograph's anger and dissatisfaction are possessing the static image, declaring something from the unseen realm. "It's the Venerable Yangs?" asked Lang Chao. "What was he doing looking after a developmental zone?" The city bureau had a policy back then. Those who were under 35 all had to get basic experience, either go to a local police station or go to one of the counties. My chauffeur and some others went to Lotus Mountain and stayed there half a year or more. Rowan carefully pinched the edge of the photographs and stuck them back into the notebook. They hadn't been there long when they ran into this case. You may never have heard of it. I wasn't old enough to attend school then. At the beginning, there was a man who came to report a case. He said his child had gone missing. Taran flipped through the notebook. Aside from the photographs and the portrait, most of the notebook's contents were purely handwritten. The old criminal policeman's writing was quite beautiful, delicate, firm, and well-shaped. On the page before the photograph, the character for him were written. The characters, for him were written. There was a triple underline under the name. Right, the person who reported the case was this Gorham. His 12-year-old daughter had gone missing. Her nickname was Feifei. At this point, Lauren Joe's hand paused on the thick sheath of teaching materials, and he raised his head to give Taran a puzzled look. "You're this drunk and you still remember what the girl was called?" I just want to check something. Taran looked down and avoided his gaze. After hearing the whole old man go on and on about it for so many years, I could recite the whole history from memory. Chang Ming was usually busy at work and had little time to watch TV. For one, she was in close proximity to people from the criminal investigation team telling stories. In spite of herself, she very curiously asked, "And then what?" Back then, it was common for parents not to be as careful as with their children as now. An 11 or 12-year-old was already an older child. Going to school or to classmates' house to play, they'd usually just say a word at home and then run off. The grown-ups wouldn't hover around them day and night. But Guofei was an especially well-behaved little girl. She went to school and went home at fixed times. If she came home 5 minutes late in the evening, she'd have a proper reason for it. Her family never had to worry about her studies. There was nothing special about the day she disappeared. Her classmates said the day after getting out of school, Guofei didn't stay on. She promptly went home. It was about a 15-minute walk. The child had gone missing during those 15 minutes. My Shifu and the others followed her usual route, going back and forth over it dozens of times. At that time, there weren't as many security cameras by the road as now, but there also weren't any especially out of the way places along the route the child took to go home. It was summer then, and not very dark in the late afternoon. There were plenty of people coming and going outside. Reasonably speaking, if a girl of that age had been grabbed off the street, even if it had just been a trace of something wrong, it was impossible that no one at all would have noticed. Want to hold hands to cope? I'm clasping my hands already. Frick. But when they had gone all over, they came up empty-handed. They turned everything upside down, near the school without finding even a hair from the girl's head. Sherlock Holmes had a famous saying, "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true." So someone said, either an acquaintance had taken her, or the child had left home herself. Following the line of thinking that it had been an acquaintance, the police investigated the school's teachers and staff, the Gore family's friends and relatives, and even the stationery store and little supermarket the child usually went to. They summoned over 100 people altogether, but they still came up empty-handed. That is so creepy. At this point, Taran paused, just as their investigation had hit a wall. The girl's father suddenly received a phone call. No one spoke when he picked up. There was only the sound of a little girl shouting herself hoarse. The child's mother fainted when she heard it. The police immediately traced the phone number and found the location of the phone. It was a very remote telephone booth. There was no security camera. Wang Chao asked in surprise. No, said Lorenzo. The phone booth was at a waste transfer station and looked abandoned. Many people didn't even know the phone still worked. They found a bit of blood next to the phone booth. It matched Gorfei's blood group, but they couldn't test the DNA then and had no way to determine whether it had actually been her. There were no fingerprints. In Torrens' living room, no one spoke. After a good while, Feidu, who hadn't spoken at all this time, put in a question. There wasn't another phone call? No extortion? No ransom demands? No, said Taran. After that phone call, the kidnapper didn't contact the girl's family again. They didn't want money, and they didn't make any requests. Oh, this is getting heavy. Feidu lightly shook his wine glass, sniffing its aroma now and then, as if the glass contained not a dry red picked up from the supermarket by Ramene Conti. Sorry, but Ramene Conti. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. That's pretty strange, he said. It sounds like a kidnapper wasn't aiming at the child, but wanted to torment the grown-ups. What did the girl's parents do? Guoheng himself was a middle school teacher, and the child's mother was a civil servant. The family's financial situation was pretty good for the time, but they were still only comfortably off. Both ordinary wage workers. You couldn't really call them rich. The couple had both gone to school. They were both well educated and reasonable, neither wildly ambitious in their careers. They got on well with their co-workers. There was no disputed interests, and the possibility of external affairs had been eliminated. An ordinary family, ordinary parents, and an ordinary girl, not even a very pretty child, rude, all living conventional lives, just as unremarkable as a random passerby on the street. The police had dug down deep without digging up any unusual stories. There is a proverb that says, "A fly won't sting a seamless egg." But the police had repeatedly combed through everyone connected with the Gore family, even analyzing all their private affairs with a magnifying glass. They had found that the girl, Guofei, and her family were, in fact, a seamless egg. Time elapsed, and the silent kidnapper didn't speak again. Both the police and the girl's family knew that the chances of getting the child back had become remote, and the best fate was that she had been sold to some place out of the way pretty locations. But the greatest likelihood was the police didn't have the first idea why the kidnapper had chosen this girl. It was as if someone had tossed a die in the street and randomly grabbed whoever it landed on. There was no apparent reason. No one was safe in this world. Nang Chao asked, and the other five? Okay, let me see what's going on here. Gotta say, Chief, this party is becoming a downer. That's an understatement. Can we go back to exposing homosexuals and their soft feelings, please? Yes, please. I second that. Yeah, this is not a fun crime-solving story at all. This is a horror story. This is a horror story in a very not fun way. Sorry, why am I struggling? Um, Back to the gays needed. Whew. Okay, so there's like 9 minutes left before we take the 10-minute break. So let's see how we do. I am sorry though, because I know I'm reading a little bit slower, but it's a lot. All the leads in Guofei's disappearance were cut short. There was nothing to be done but leave it unsolved. Later, Ma Shifu was recalled to the city. He was with the Shitai District Sub-Bureau's criminal investigation team then. There was another missing child case in the jurisdiction. Another girl, 12 years old, also disappearing without a trace on her way home from school. The kidnappers were also silent. The most frightening thing was that 2 days after the girl went missing, her family received a phone call with a wailing child. Mashifu immediately felt something was off and made the situation known to his superiors. The head of the Shitai district at the time decided to report up to the city bureau. In the end, they found that in all of the Yan city, including the surrounding counties, there had been 6 missing children cases of this kind. 7, Lowendra added. Her last surviving girl's home situation was special. She had no father, and her mother was a drunk, fooling around morning to night. The child went missing for several days and she didn't know. She never called the police. The city bureau took the lead on this, transferred people over from the district, established a special investigation team. Lao Yang later transferred to the city bureau because of that opportunity. But there was no developments. There were no points of intersection between the missing girls except. At this point, Lowendra suddenly remembered something. His gaze fell on Chen Chen, chewing a drinking straw as she listened attentively. After pausing, he steered his words onto another direction. Except that the means of kidnapping were about the same. After Gufei's father heard about it, he took a long-term unpaid leave and came over to City Bureau to wait for the result from the special investigation team. But unfortunately, in the end, he lost hope. Taran very respectfully stowed the old criminal policeman's notebook in the cardboard box. Later, the special investigation team dispersed. The only remaining people who still thought about the case were the victims' families and Mai Shifu, who had dealt with the case from the beginning. After another half a year, Gao Heng suddenly found Mai Shifu and said he found a suspect. It was a teacher named Wu Guangchen, the person in the drawing. Wu Guangchen was a teacher at Jinxie Middle School. Jinxie was the earliest private middle school of the time, a boarding school recruiting students from the whole city. The school fees were high, the education quality was high. Quite a few people in distant suburbs thought that the local middle school wouldn't do it and sent their children to Jinxie. When Gufei went missing, Wu Guangchen had just happened to have come with a team to the Lotus Mountain area to recruit new students. Cheng Ning held her breath. Was it him? Oh, okay. No worries, this novel is a lot. You'll need to space it out. It's perfectly fine. Information will process better if you read slower. At least that's how it is for me. Yeah. Okay, let's see where we're at. This chapter feels forever long, but I think it's just because it's so unpleasant. Like, it was great at the start, but now this bit is just very unpleasant. Wu Guangcheng was a 36-year-old then. He was divorced and lived alone. He did meet the requirements for the offender. Lao Yang privately went to shadow him and performed some illegal moves, but he didn't turn anything up. This Wu Guangchun's temper was mild. He got on well with people. He was known far and wide as a good person. He regularly came into contact with children at work and had never crossed any lines. Lao Yang shadowed him for a while and thought it wasn't him. But Guo Heng was like someone possessed. He was simply positive that Wu Guangchun was the kidnapper. Later, Lao Yang withdrew, and Guo Heng went with a melon knife to find Wu Guangchun. He stabbed him. Wang Chao cried out, "Did he die?" "Yes." By the time they got him to the hospital, he wasn't breathing. In Wu Guangchun's basement, they found the seventh missing girl, as well as the clothes of the 6 previous girls. The clothes had been cut into strips and had bloodstains matching the blood groups of the victims. That was how the serial child kidnapping case was resolved. But while the clothes were there, they couldn't find the girls themselves, dead or alive, and the suspect had died without giving testimony. Luo Wenzhou stood up and stretched. Guo Heng had deliberately killed someone and was sentenced. Lao Yang could never let it go. He always thought that it was his error of judgment that had led to the later tragedy. He went on and on about it all his life. Let's not mention it anymore. The suspect's ashes are cold. Eat. Well, that is pleasant dinner talk, isn't it? Or lunch talk, I can't remember. Make you wonder if Guo Heng has something to do with it, or alternatively if, because I can't remember much of how this resolved, so just bear that in mind. Um, if someone noticed Guo Heng's obsession and kind of used it to their advantage to make it seem like the killer had been caught so that there wouldn't be people still looking for the killer, if that makes sense. Um, oh, sorry. Where did that come from? Uh, Everyone enjoyed themselves at Taran's house until the afternoon. The ones who had taken the taxi or the subway all scattered, and the ones who had driven their own cars stayed back to help Taran clean up his new home while sobering up. Chang Ling and Chen Chen went home too. Taran had downed a few more glasses afterwards and couldn't quite stand up straight while washing the dishes. He nearly broke a dish, saving it at the last moment, and got chased away by Lo and Zhou. Lo and Zhou washed all the dishes and put them away in a in a twinkling. Am I reading that wrong? When he returned to the living room, he saw Fei Du with his back to him, casually flipping through the old criminal policeman's notes. He seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He said to Luo and Zhou, "Didn't you leave something out just now?" The missing girls definitely had a point in common. Was it the clothes? Luo and Zhou leaned back against the wall and laughed in spite of himself. "How do you know? You aren't the killer's reincarnation." You looked at Chen Chen, then put back your words. Fei turned around. The clothes found in this Wu Guangcheng's basement, were they all floral printed dresses? As soon as Luwenzhou saw him, he remembered that unfortunate game machine and rather uncomfortably avoided his gaze. You can teach a child to be careful of strangers, to be vigilant, but you can't make her scared of wearing full pattern dresses. Otherwise, what's the point of us? Oh, Faye nodded lightly. Captain Law is right. Having for once heard a few nice words out of his mouth, and had his liver set tingling by his nod, Lawrence's inauspicious premonition came true the next second. Feydoo quietly asked, "Aside from the little white flowers and the game machine, what else is there?" Guys, I'm so thankful to Priest for leaving this chapter off on a high note, because I feel like she knew that if she left me with a sad note on this chapter, it would be harder to return. Obviously, I would return because I'm doing the read along, but as a normal reader, if you ended with the downer that we had for the last part of the chapter, it would be a lot harder to go back to the next chapter and just hope that, there would be something pleasant coming from it. So the fact that she left it off with another domestic filled, or potential for domestic filled moments, just appreciate it so much. Um, But I am gonna leave it here for a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and continue with chapter 38 after the 10-minute break. So I will see you guys at 12 past. She's like the worst kind of cane and radish, oh goodness. Okay, we are back. At least I hope everything is fine. Let me know um if the audio is still okay. And I mean, remembering the show scene helps. Oh yeah, no, I have to like give them props for how accurately the show adapted it, considering the constraints that they had. Yeah, okay. Good for good audio. Before we jump into it, just wanted to share in case anyone was wondering, not that I think anyone was, but I thought it was cute, so let me share it in any way. Um, Apparently the reason why the dog was barking was because there was like a pit or a pip, I suppose you call it, in English, tormenting her like a apple pip. I don't know what you call it in English, but the things that apples grow out of that thing. Um, so yeah, apparently she was having fun with that and barking at it. Baby dogs are weird. Anyway, okay, let us get back to the very serious gayness that is Modu. Okay. Okay, chapter 38, Humbud Humbud 5. I'm gonna start hating that name, aren't I? I wish that was my honest. The guests had left, and Taran had presumably already slept his way to an alternate dimension. Give me problems like that. I wish I only had problems like that, honestly. A faint aroma of wine floated through the brightly sunlit living room, sour, sweet, and clinging. Fedu turned off the air conditioning and opened a window. He used the newly arrived coffee maker to make a cup of espresso, the thick fragrance steaming up from the corner of the table. I can smell that, oh my word. The summer day's warm breeze met Lowendraw head on. For a moment he was silent. Then he shook the water droplets off his hands and pressed the heels of his ice-cold palm to his forehead, sighing in utter helplessness. Youngster. Why did I think he would ever say that? Youngster, can you be a little more tactful? The red neckerchief teaches us from the time we're little that we shouldn't leave our names when doing good deeds. Where's the beauty in you bring it up like this, huh? Sure, that's why you didn't let him know. Fedu didn't respond. He seemed to have frozen, his false propriety nearly becoming the truth. Lowendraw looked at him and suddenly realized that he wasn't alone in being embarrassed. Considering President Faye's precise memory, he definitely recalled a scene of himself parading around at the city bureau, playing games, attacking Lowendraw with frigid wit and scorching irony. Lowendraw earnestly imagined that it would be what it would be like to be in Fedu's shoes now. Imagining such a scene, he felt his hair standing up in alarm. As soon as he thought of this, his vision took on an awkwardness filter. He looked at Fedu again. He thought that his flatly pursed lips, his fingers held unnaturally at his sides, and the evasive gaze behind his lenses all made him look incomparably uncomfortable. Lorenzo, am I hearing you going soft on him? Maybe, possibly? When he was uncomfortable himself, it would often go from bad to worse. The more he spoke, the more he would babble. But if he noticed the other person was also uncomfortable, then the symptoms would instantly heal on their own. Lowendraw suddenly smiled and slowly stuck his hands in his pockets. He lowered his head and put a cigarette in his mouth, dropping and then raising his eyelids. looking Fedu over from bottom to top. Because his mouth was occupied, the voice coming from between his teeth was a touch nasal. What? You finally discover that the Uncle Dogbin you've bitten all these years is a good person? It's all right, darling. Not okay. I'm not okay. He called him darling. Oh no. I lost my place. Where are we? You don't have to be so nervous. We living Leifengs don't ask for single minded devotion from just anyone. Mm hmm. Sure. Feidu's features were like a painted mask, impenetrable as a fortress. Especially when he was agitated, his control over his own expression and body language was nearly perfect. Not a trace of emotion leaked out, damn it. Compared to him, the lie-sprouting Jalhar Chung and his ilk could simply be considered ignoramus. Oh, sorry, not ignoramus. Whoops, my bad. Ingenious. Like the exact opposite of ignoramus. Or is it supposed to be ingenuous, like disingenuous? Oh, I think it's supposed to be ingenuous. Sorry about that. Uh, that was a mess. Okay, hold on. Let me just recover here for a second. Oh my, yes, the darling. Finally. Mm-hmm. Shamelessly uncle zoning himself. I don't even know if he can uncle zone himself at this point. Oh no. I'm so embarrassed about that. Sorry. Feidu didn't answer Lowenjo's half-joking words. He muttered silently to himself for a moment, turned and picked up the cup of freshly ground coffee. A thin layer of oil floated on top, forming small ripples as he moved. Oil? Oil in coffee? What went wrong? That doesn't sound good. Um, where am I now? Forming small ripples as he moved. Fay didn't add a grain of sugar, as if he had lost his sense of taste. He silently drank over half the cup. Fedu had drunk a few glasses of wine earlier, and he hadn't eaten properly at all. His stomach was half empty now. The unhealthy assembly of alcohol and high concentrate coffee immediately formed into a blood pressure supercharge, luring his heart into pumping great quantities of blood into his veins. His disordered and suddenly accelerated heart rate made him feel a little unwell, cold sweat forming in the palms of his hands. Um, are we sure that it's just the coffee? I'm just speculating here. Um, I think she meant the sheen. Yeah, let's go with that. That makes more sense, especially considering they don't mention the like oil again, and I feel like Feidu's a picky enough person that he would mention it if it was actual, like, literal oil. Lowenjaw frowned. Don't drink any more of that. Feidu curved his palms towards the warmth of the bone china cup, and the corners of his mouth twitched. He interrupted him with a false smile. Actually, it's very rare for someone like me who would casually hire a contract killer to do away with my own dad to be able to preserve my current position so long without going astray. Captain Moore's long years of care are a contribution to that. Sorry, are a contribution that can't go unnoticed. Lowenjo felt a certain indiscernible tension in these words, but before he could carefully sample it, Fedu had drained the rest of the coffee in one gulp. It must have been too bitter. He frowned, his raised chin and neck forming a sharp, curving arc. Then he put the cup down, nodded, and turned to leave. I'll be going then. Say a word to Taran for me. Hey, Lowenjo subconsciously ordered, don't drive after drinking. Fedu ignored him. Do you hear me? Said Lowenjo. With an indifferent look, Fedu put his hand on the doorknob, seeming not to have heard. Lowenjo saw that speaking had twice failed. He had to act. He grabbed Fedu's arm and skillfully pulled it backward. Using the grip he normally used to arrest criminals, he twisted Fedu's hand behind his back and pulled him away from the door. Interesting. I'm totally just scientifically interested in this. Nothing else. Respectfully. Fedu ... You weren't listening. Under Fedu's shocked gaze, one hand pressed to the back of his neck, one hand trapped his arm. Lowenjo escorted him to an armchair 3 steps away. Sit down and wait. I'll call you a driver. Fedu, only then recovered, immediately struggled out of his grip. He spoke rather quickly. Captain Lure, could you evolve a little from the basic Homo sapien condition towards the level of a civilized people? Lowenjo ignored him, the fingers laying on the back of Fedu's neck, inching slightly over to his pulse. I'm sorry, what? I think you aren't feeling well. As I was saying, I seem to remember reading somewhere that you shouldn't drink coffee and wine together. Fedu... He was so shocked by Lowenjo's belated advice that his ears hurt. Lowenjo looked at him. I didn't think it over that much. Not being nice to you won't do being nice. Sorry, not being nice to you won't do. Being nice to you won't do either. You're harder to satisfy than Her Holiness the Empress Dowager Cixi. Fedu said, Excuse my lack of manners. I didn't know your surname was actually Lee. I'm totally fine about all this banter taking place. Lowenjo tapped on the side of his neck, then picked up his phone and went to call a driver. Taran, the master of the house, knew nothing of the quarrel full of surging undercurrents. He had been knocked down by a few glasses of red wine and lay under the setting sun, and lay until the setting sun had suffused the surface of the earth. Only then did he get up, his mouth parched. Unsurprisingly, the guests had all left before leaving. They had neatly tidied his disorderly apartment. In his new residence, Taran washed his face and looked at the 2 notes stuck to the refrigerator. One had been left by Lowenjo, telling him that the uneaten food was all in the refrigerator, and he should heat it up for himself when he got up. The other note had been left by Fedu. It was comparatively long. Taran rubbed his eyes for an age before he could clearly read what was written on it. Fedu said that when he had taken Chinchin out to buy a notebook, he'd had the feeling they were being followed. He wasn't sure that it had been aimed at Chinchin. He could have been oversensitive. But just in case, he asked Taran if he had time in the evening to go to apartment 1101 in his building to pay a visit to Chinchin's parents and remind them to be careful of their child's safety during the summer vacation. He also told Taran not to forget to bring something to thank the great beauty for honoring his humble abode with his presence that day. Sorry, her presence that day. Now that he's technically over Taran, he's just taken on wingman wingman mode. Is that what I'm seeing? The busybody. He'd even gotten the apartment number. Taran laughed in spite of himself. Uh, Go on, Wenju. Keep provoking him. I'm sure he'll never retaliate. Bye, all. Gotta sleep now. Why is tomorrow Monday? I'm so sorry, but sleep well and good luck with your week. Uh, then he smiled gradually. Then his smile gradually congealed. He read over Fedu's description of the suspected stalker again and subconsciously looked out the window. The vegetation of the old estate was plentiful, and the dense conifers and shrubs crowded together. Looking down from upstairs, there was nothing to see. It was quiet and still. Taran went over to the small cabinet and once again opened the old criminal policeman's notes. On the title page there was a tiny old photograph, taken of the notebook's previous owner during his youth. Crew-cut, square-faced, somberly facing the camera, his name was written next to the photograph, in flourishing cursive, Yang Zhengfeng. The pages concerning the Lotus Mountain serial child kidnapping case had been circled in red by Venerable Yang. Taran knew that this indicated that in Shufu's mind the case hadn't been solved. In these pages was a record of the old criminal policeman's notes and his illegal surveillance of Wu Gongchun. Spanning half a month, each day it amounted to nothing abnormal. There was also a few lines of small writing. According to Wu Guangchun's colleagues, while recruiting students at Lotus Mountain, he stayed in the hospital 2 days due to severe cold. This just happened to be the time the victim, Guo Fei, went missing. I have confirmed the pertinent circumstances with the hospital. Wu Guangchun's opportunity to commit the crime is an open question. Hi! Taran poured himself a cup of warm water and slowly combed his chaotic thoughts into order. Wu Guangchun was supposed to be over 1.7 meters in height, a tall man. A little girl would have had to lift her head to look at his face. Adolescent children had already begun to develop and could distinguish gender, and they were beginning to be sensitive. A strange adult man, even if he were a teacher, would need several meetings or a long period of contact to gain a girl's trust. Would the hospitalized Wu Guangchun have had the time and opportunity? While Taran was lost in thought, his fingers loosened and the notebook fell and shut, revealing a strip of paper stuck among the last pages. It was in Taran's own handwriting. An FM radio frequency was written on it, followed by the note, "Midnight 0-hour reading." Yang Jingfeng had died 3 years earlier, knifed by a wanted criminal. He had been gradually getting older and his rank gradually higher. Several years ago, he had been moved from the front lines of criminal policing to a management position. Law and Draw had heard a hint then, which said that he would soon be promoted to deputy director, and they had been eagerly looking forward to eating a meal at his expense. When the business happened, it had even been on his working time. In order to send his child off to attend university out of town, Yang Zhengfeng had taken 2 weeks off his annual leave. When the child had been sent off, he'd planned to use its last day of vacation to act as house husband, going to the market first in the morning. While going through an underpass, he'd seen a vagrant looked, who looked on edge. The vagrant was fretful, glaring viciously at any passerby who looked at him too long. Oh, Yang Zhengfeng had acutely felt that this person's little gestures looked like he was preparing to attack, and therefore took careful note. Looking more closely, he recognized the vagrant as an A-level wanted criminal who had brutally stabbed his four neighbors to death and then run off. Damn. The suspect's mental state was evidently unstable. Yang Zhengfeng didn't dare to act rashly. He furtively contacted his colleagues, but all it took was a little push. An old lady walking a dog went by. Perhaps the little dog sensed danger. It started to bark wildly at the wanted criminal, provoking him at once. He yelled and pulled out a knife from somewhere, throwing himself at the old lady. Yang Zhengfeng had no choice to put himself forward. Yang Zhengfeng was stabbed a dozen times by the deranged killer. Well, that isn't upsetting at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Taran had been on duty that day and was the earliest to arrive on the scene, coming just in time to see the venerable Yang one last time. But the strange thing was, Yang Jingfeng's last words weren't to ask whether the criminal had been caught, nor to recommend his wife and child to Taran's care. Gripping Taran's hand, he repeatedly said, 88.6 FM, 1205, 88.6. The 1205 program on 88.6 FM was a 0 hour reading. Afterwards, the program had stopped broadcasting and had become a very non mainstream phone app, every day mildly playing an audiobook, the contents exceedingly dull. Fadu had happened to hear it once and had jokingly called it a weapon of hypnosis. Working the night shift, turning your days and night upside down, would sometimes cause trouble sleeping. At these times, Taran would listen to the peculiar audiobooks for a while. He had always suspected that he'd failed to grasp Shifu's last words, until one time when he heard the ID, the reciter. Taran got out his phone, which was nearly out of battery, opened the 0 hour reading app, and went to the saved commentary on the red and the black, authored by the reciter. The first sentence of the article was, "But with whom shall I have my meals?" This question is all the character's fears. In an incomparable coincidence, Zhao Hachang, the killer in the 520 case, having used his connection to the Zhang family to take the colleague's place and obtain an excellent opportunity, had then relied on these resources to ascend to the rank of its second level partner. In order to commemorate this, he had stolen the fountain pen of Feidu, the head of the company that had collaborated on the project. He had put a commemorative label on it, which had happened to say, "With whom shall I have my meals?" I'm scared, guys. Like that, I don't know why that sentence just terrified me now. There was no way to explain this to others. If he'd said it, people would only think he had been immersed in the case too long, to the point of becoming a little neurotic, seeing something and feeling a sense of deja vu. But the problem was that Taran thought he'd had the same sense of deja vu more than once, and each time it was the same idea. When Shifu had touched his hand at the end, had he really said the name of a boring reading program? Could he have heard wrong? And under the self-suggestion that there was something wrong with that program, that over time began to see each bush as an enemy soldier, suspecting every coincidence. Taran had been a criminal policeman for over 7 years. He knew this kind of thing was very common. If a person was overly suspicious, their memory would trick them. How many eyewitnesses were there who had run into a violent crime but afterwards couldn't say clearly whether the suspect had been male or female, tall or short? Over the years, he'd gone through the old criminal policeman's notebook from cover to cover countless times, attempting to find some trace in it. To understand what Shifu's true last words had been after all. But though he had all the notes memorized, he still hadn't found any traces apart from that radio program. Suffice to say, I'm stressed. Um, this live is just trauma, gay, trauma, gay, trauma, gay, trauma. Yeah, no, it's very much. I love it. I'm glad you love it at least. I'm torn about how I feel about it. Over the years, he'd gone. Um, oh, sorry. Taran took a deep breath and shook his head in self mockery, feeling that perhaps he needed to go have a chat with the Bureau's psychological counselor. Just then, an update notice appeared in the app's top right-hand corner. Taran carelessly looked down at it, and his pupils contracted. The subject of the update was, Wanderer, have you found your lost pearl? Rereading Lolita. Contributor, the reciter. What's creepy about that as well is kind of like obviously it could very clearly be referring to the man finding a girl that interests him for the first time and forever, and I hate that I just said that. Um, but it could also kind of be like directly addressing Taran. Like that's a scary thought, but with someone like that, I could imagine them wanting to provoke the police directly, even if it's not that directly. And like being like, oh, Wanderer, do you find the person that you've been waiting for all these years? Did you find someone that you're actually interested in? Um, that kind of thing. Like it could almost be considered a threat, but I think I'm just looking too closely at it right now. Oh, sorry. Okay, we have 20 minutes left. I don't think we're gonna be able to finish this chapter, so we'll see how far we can get into it. Um, but yeah, if we keep going at this rate, hopefully we'll be able to finish before I go on my holiday. We shall see. The house was too big. The limited human energy couldn't. Oh, sorry, chapter 39, Humbert 6. The house was too big. The limited human energy couldn't soak through, and it sent out a smell of deep lifelessness. It was the lifelessness that sunlight, fresh flowers, and lamps were all powerless to dispel. He stood in the vestibule, hesitating. Reasonably speaking, this ought to have been his home, but every time he set foot in the spotless vestibule and faced the room filled with sunlight coming in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, there was dread in his heart. Faint music came from upstairs, a melodious female voice repeatedly reciting the refrain. He stood for a moment in a trance, as if he dimly knew that something was about to happen. He slowly began to walk, heading inside. The sensation of the sunlight falling on him became strange, clammy, and chill. Not like sunlight, but like the wind during a rainstorm. It blew over his forearms, left bare by his summer uniform, raising a layer of fine goose flesh. Um, okay, I'm assuming, like, I was thinking it before, but now I'm almost 100% sure that this is a dream. I hope you enjoy your holidays. Thank you. Yes, I'm gonna be going on the 15th, so I'm really hoping to have all the videos ready for you guys before I leave, so I don't have to worry about uploads while I'm away. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Um, yeah. Went up the second floor. The music became louder and louder, the familiar melody sticking in his chest like a fish bone caught in his throat. His breathing became labored, and he halted, wanting to run away. But when he looked back, he discovered that everything behind him had dissolved into darkness. Everything seemed to be fixed, written, and rehearsed. Before him, there was only one road, one direction. The all-encompassing darkness enveloped him from all sides, compelling him to go up the narrow stairs, compelling him to push open that door. A loud roar. He thought that something had exploded beside his ear. Then he looked down and saw the woman falling onto the ground. Oh, her neck was twisted at an unnatural angle, and her body was suffused with a rigid pallor. But her eyes were open. It seemed that while her body was dead, her spirit still lived. Ooh! The woman stared straight at him, two trails of bloody tears flowing from her eyes. She coldly asked, "Why didn't you save me?" His breath tightened, and he backed away. The woman staggered to her feet and reached out a death-mottled hand. "You can feel everything. Why were you avoiding me? Why didn't you save me?" The hand was surrounded by the consuming darkness. The dark seemed to be alive, heartlessly swallowing her up. She let out a out ceasing, she let out ceaseless screams and questions, struggling with all her might to reach out her hand to grab him, but she was ceaselessly pulled into the darkness. He instinctively took the icy and livid hand, heard the screams, felt that he was falling unstoppably. Suddenly, something pulled him from behind. His back pressed against a warm and solid body, and a pair of hands came around him, traveling up and covering his eyes. Ah. Like, I think this is an interesting thing. I feel like it makes a lot more sense from a censorship perspective, the way that they showed it in the live action. It was very much a memory, and Law and Jaw in that memory protecting um, Feidu from what he was seeing. But now, with the way that it's being described in the novel, it actually has like an entirely different flavor to me. Like, in this version, it very much to me feels like Lo and Joe being the anchor, keeping him from dwelling too much on his past, and not so much of like literal revisiting of the past, if I'm making any sense. Am I making sense? Are you guys getting what I'm trying to say? Oh yeah, 100%. Hope you have a lot of fun and rest as much as possible. Thank you. Oh yeah, they very smartly made it a big brother moment. He smelled the faint scent of cigarettes on those clear, knuckled hands. Then, in the cracks between the fingers, there was a burst of light. Fedus started awake. He was sitting in his own study, going through a dull project plan. He'd read halfway through and fallen asleep. It was afternoon. A cool wind, full of humidity, was pouring in from outside the window. At some point, the wind and clouds had risen outside, and a storm was brewing. The roaring sounds and flashing lights in his dreams had been thunder and lightning. His phone was ringing interminably, displaying 3 missed calls. No wonder he had heard that music in his dream. Ah, okay, that makes sense. Feidu took a deep breath. As he got up to close the window, he answered the phone. Hello? Zhang Donglai's shouts crashed into his ear. It's the middle of the day, Master Fei. Which beauty's body were you relaxing to climb off of? The way he decided to phrase that, oh my word. I've called you so many times and you haven't picked up. The thunder is too loud, I didn't hear. Feidu's head was still rather heavy. He rubbed the center of his brow. What do you want? The wind is great, the rain is great, the sun is great. Darling, come out and play. No, I feel like darling should only be reserved for law and draw. Feidu came up to the window and felt the water vapor in the air was about to start drizzling. The plants by the window were drooping their heads. Where are you having fun on a lousy day like this? Zhang Donglai said. There's a new cross-country racing field in the West Ridge uh, ecological, ecological district. It's super cool. They've developed a special death course. Oh, we love that. Not. Only open when the weather's bad. The stronger the tempest, the more stimulating. How do the words go? Storm, petrol, let the tempest strike harder. Is he trying to quote Shakespeare there? Having heard this, Feidu felt the mud had splashed onto his outer ear Along with these words. Indifferently he said, You're courting death? Listen to yourself. How elderly is that? It doesn't sound anything like the liveliness of a modern young man. In a person's life, once he's eaten things and seen things, what else can he do? Isn't playing around, courting death the only thing left to do? Zhang Donglai said volubly. Priest is just trying to pull out all these words that I don't know. If you don't want to drive, then don't drive, just show up. Let me tell you, they have an accompanying club at the racing field. They've brought over a little artistic troupe. There's all types of temperaments of beauties in it. Tall, dark-haired, lovely, great girls, chin-playing little artists, a whole other class from those spirits, completely in accordance with your troublesome taste. I don't know, his troublesome taste has shifted a little bit lately, I think, even though he won't admit it yet. It's a rare opportunity. Hurry up and come here. Don't sit around at home nursing your infatuation with an old man. Hasn't he already found someone else? Anyway, don't worry, it's another old man this time. You're pretty well informed, Feidu snorted. He was a director general who had grown up in comfort. He had no interest in playing around, courting death in the rain in front of a lively, stupid little... I'm not going to say that word. But also I appreciate Feidu being a man of, like, of my kind of caliber. Not caliber, that's not the right word, but, like, I too would rather just stay home and hermit. Happily. Okay, where are we? Good cop protecting the innocent child very purely and platonically, which is smart. from a censorship perspective, yes, the death track, Yahoo. Yeah, his taste is a middle-aged, flirty cat dad. That is the perfect description for Law and Jaw. Um, he meant to refuse and hung up. The words of the refusal had already risen to his lips. I'm not. Just then, Fedu leaned beside the window and suddenly saw his own dimly lit study and somehow remembered his disordered dream just now, as well as those tobacco-scented hands. Mm-hmm. More than a month had passed since Charan's housewarming feast. Fedu, who had previously harassed Officer Tao nearly every day, hadn't even called him. First, it was that he knew there was someone Taran liked, and it wouldn't be proper to disturb him. Second, it was that every time he saw that miserable game machine, he'd feel wronged all over again. Oh no. Today was even worse. He was being plagued by nightmares. All right. Fedu changed his answer at the last second. Send me the address. Nearing the end of July, Yan City's rainy season was also coming to its tail end. By the uninterrupted rain, but the uninterrupted rain not only showed no signs of laying down its arms, it was instead growing even more demented. 2 hours after getting off work, Nolan Jaw retraced his steps. He left his car at the city bureau's gates and didn't even take an umbrella, just put a hood over his head and charged into the building through the rain. Captain Law, second floor conference room, hurry. Law and Jaw took out his dripping jacket. Shook out his dripping jacket, displaying 3 bloody scratches on the back of his hand. He raced up to the second floor and finally released the breath caught in his chest. So what's going on? I don't know. I also just got here. Taran carelessly rolled up his umbrella. What happened to your hand? I'm guessing it was Loi Guo. Um, Let's see, I didn't really enjoy. Joe irritably scratched at the wounds on the back of his hand, which had already stopped bleeding. A light bulb blew out at home. I was just changing it in the dark when the venerable old man called to urge me to death, and I was so urged that I accidentally stepped on the ancestor's tail. Director Lou! Oh my word, the way that he said that. The novel is entirely accurate. Or, like, I should rather say the adaptation, the live action, is entirely accurate to the part of the novel that I've read so far, so I don't think you'll be disappointed. Um, but yeah, it's quite intense, so it also depends on your tolerance for the intense. I think this is like hedging on the edge of my tolerance at some points because of the subject matter. Speak of the venerable old man, and the venerable old man will appear. Lu Lu Yu Liang, damn it. Yu Liang quickly gestured at the two of them, going towards the conference room like the wind. Lo and Jo and Taran hurriedly followed. Today is the last day of the city's 16th middle school's recruitment summer camp. The school organized a visit for the students participating in the summer camp to West Ridge's Paleolithic Man's what? Man's Ruins Memorial Museum. That's a mouthful. They rented a mid-sized bus. On it, aside from the driver, were a chaperoning teacher and 18 elementary school students who will be entering the graduating class when school starts. Around 5 in the afternoon, the visit ended and they departed on their way back. originally planning to return to the school at 7. Now they've lost contact with the bus and everyone on it. Oh, great! To disturb the City Bureau's criminal investigation team late at night, it took only a thought to be sure that this wasn't a car accident. Law and Jaw and Taran exchanged a look, neither of them speaking. Director Lu opened the door of the conference room. The people inside the conference room were about to stand. Lu Yuliang raised his hand and pressed it down. Don't mind me, keep talking. The conference room's projector changed at this, a huge realistic map spreading over it. The missing bus's license plate number is Yan NL, I think, quadruple X. It comes from the Hong Tong Leasing Company. The driver is Han Jiang, male, 41, 15 years' driving experience. The chaperoning teacher is Hu Ling, 32, teacher at the 16th Middle School, Yan City native. At 5:05, the bus set out from the back entrance of the West Ridge Museum and drove onto the National Road. Around 6, some of the students' parents learned that there had been a sudden outbreak of extreme weather and a portion of the road had been sealed off. They called the teacher to confirm and received the information that they had already detoured, but the road conditions were poor, and they estimated that they would arrive at an hour or two later than planned. Around 7:40, the parents called again to ask where they had gotten to, but the chaperoning teacher, Hu Ling's phone had been turned off. At this time, the parents hadn't realized that there was a problem and quickly called the child's phone. When it connected, they heard the sounds of children crying and screaming and a man's voice shouting and swearing. Before they could ask what had happened, after 4 seconds, the call was hung up. Oh, okay, that's rough. You should for sure try. The translation is free and good, and the characters are great. You can also stop reading it if it's not your cup of tea. Okay, I will. Thank you guys for your thoughts. Yeah, agree, no problem. Happy to help. Yeah, if you, I don't know, like if you generally read Danmade, but if you're looking for something also written by Priest that is historical and you haven't read it yet, READALONG is another one that is also theoretically being turned into a C-drama, but obviously whether or not that will see the light of day is debatable. But yeah, it's theoretically being turned into a live action called Winner is King. If you're looking for more priest things, but you aren't keen on the modern things. But personally, I'm living for this. The parents then called the police. There were several children on the bus whose phones had child tracking monitors, but when they were traced, they showed up as having been scattered at the foot of a hill. The conjecture is that they'd been forced to throw them out, but there's also a child wearing sneakers with GPS chips in them. Oh! Which shows that their position has already diverged from the planned route and reached West Ridge County's southern mountain district and is still advancing. Oh damn. Was the kidnapper on the bus or a hijacker encountered along the way? Asked Lo and Joe. Have they made any contact with the outside world of their own accord? Raised any requests? Not at present. Lo and Joe, Director Liu raised his head. This matter involves several of the city's districts and counties. All departments, as well as the special police team, need to cooperate closely. You'll take the lead in making arrangements and report directly to me. Can you do it? Lowen's jaw stared. For a moment he could clearly feel several gazes falling on him. Fortunately, his physiological quality was extremely good. His expression didn't flicker, and he nodded as though nothing were the matter. Yes, everything must be done to ensure the safety of the children. Quickly. The rain fell heavier and heavier, showing no signs of stopping. The girl sat beside the chaperoning teacher. Her floral patterned dress was already dampened by the threads of rain floating in through the bus's window, but she didn't dare to go close it. I mean, I know we knew this is where it was going, but still. And I just realized we're already 4 minutes over the time, so I'm gonna stop here. We'll recap this bit that I just read because I didn't realize this is kind of the start of a new scene. They didn't do the scene divider thing. Okay. So let's see what you guys are saying, and then I have to go. I read the first volume of READALONG. It was great. It's good. Same in love with this novel. It's something special. I also want to read READALONG, but haven't started yet. Too many books to read. Fully agree. Yep, same here. Also, I like to have Seven Seas physical books, but they are also expensive. Ain't that true? Again, fully agree. Like, my bookshelf, I don't even want to know how much the books on the, like, down my bookshelf that I have are already worth, and I want to collect more, which is painful. So, okay, that is the end for today. I'm gonna do some calculating to figure out how long it will take us to get to chapter 50 at the rate that we're going right now, because I want to make sure that we're finishing up until chapter 50 before I leave. So let me see if I can quickly do it now. So we do just under 4 chapters per live, I think. So 3 plus 3, and we are now at chapter 39, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. So if we do for more or less, yeah, we're gonna fall a little bit short, and that's if we even manage to do 4. So what I might do is we'll have 8 Saturday and Sundays. That's 4 theoretically. And then we'll have 3 left. So I'm wondering if we can maybe work in a live on either Friday or Thursday. What are you guys thinking? Because I'm leaving on the 15th. So we can either do Thursday or Friday, the 7th or the 8th, or we can do maybe the 12th on the Tuesday. I don't know. You guys can let me know now, or you can let me know in the comments. This was great, thank you. Have a good night. Thanks for reading with us. This one wasn't easy, but it was still fun. Yeah, and I appreciate throwing in as much of the like domestic fluff as she did, because I think that really helped pull us through and like helped balance the chapter a little bit. And it's a lot easier to get through these with you guys, because honestly I think I might have just skipped some sections of this if I had to read it on my own, just because it's so grim. But yeah, okay. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you at some point throughout the week. I will be putting up a scheduled live whenever we decide on. So you can kind of just keep a lookout and eye out for that if you want. Whatever is more comfortable for you. I don't really have any preferences regarding. Like me, hope you have a good day ahead. Thank you. Bye, guys.